Hello there, and a very warm welcome to Chazingdra Chats, the show where we take a stroll through the life stories of people in the Pokemon community, discovering the 6 Pokemon on their dream team along the way. I'm Charlie Merriman, Merry by name, Merry by nature, a host and commentator of the Pokemon Championship Series and a content creator, otherwise known as Chazingdra. And as always, I very much hope my guests and I can brighten your day and make it merry, because I have the honour of being joined by Kirk Dubé, otherwise known as Doobsnax. Kirk, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, my friend. I'm excited to be able to do the show with you. I know when the first couple episodes rolled out, I messaged you. I was like, if you ever need somebody, this format is awesome, and I'd like to be a part of it. So I'm excited that I've got my turn up at the plate here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Kirk and I met at European International Championships in the 2024 season, and it was so exciting meeting all of you Unite people. The energy that you have on the broadcasts and what you bring to make Unite different from the other 3 games that are broadcast at the competitive events it's so fascinating to see.
We have a unique approach, we'll say, and I think the unique approach is just trying to figure out how far past the guardrails we can go without getting ourselves fired. So it's going pretty well so far. We're having a good time, and hopefully we're widening the road a little bit for the other games too.
Yeah, but of course, your origins came with the trading card game, but I'm sure we'll get
They did.
into that as we keep discussing. So let's get straight into it, Kirk. Let's get to know you a bit better and your handpicked 6 Pokemon for your dream team. Thank you as always for your openness with what you're sharing today. What we're going to start with is Pokemon Red.
Yes, let's jump in the way back machine. So Pokemon Red was my first exposure to Pokemon. And I remember when it came out, I just thought it was very unique and interesting. I actually didn't get it right when it came out. So it came out like in the fall of '98. And I didn't get it until that Christmas. So there was like, 2.5 months there where there's kids playing it, but I wasn't. So actually what I ended up doing at that point in time is I borrowed my friend's cartridge. He let me borrow it, and he's like, you cannot save your game. You can play, but you cannot save your game. So I remember I had like this one very degenerate Sunday where I was like, okay, new batteries in the Game Boy, fired up the game, and I played all day long. I was able to evolve my starter to like, I just played all day long. And when I had to go to bed that night, I was kind of devastated because at that point I'd been playing all day long. And I was like, I put a lot of effort in this, and now I just have to, lose my Ivysaur or whatever. Just took down Misty, but you had to fire the game off and turn it off, and I had to return the cartridge at school the next day. But that was really kind of the impetus for me to be kind of all in on Pokemon. Then it was, the anime, the cards started coming out, so collecting those. And really was just my attachment to Pokemon, which has now been for the rest of my life, right? It's just one of those things that is so unique and exciting, and at the time kind of inspiring of like, oh, what can I make my team look like, similar to what we're doing on this podcast here. So I was all in once I finally got my own cartridge on Christmas Eve, fired it up, and I've been Pokemon ever since.
Did you, when you fired up your own cartridge, did you choose the same first partner as you did on that time when you had to blitz through the game in a day, or how closely did you mimic it, or what did you change?
I changed nothing. I fired up the game, and I chose Bulbasaur again because I thought, just out of like the little initial like sprites that they had in the game, it looked the coolest. So I went with Bulbasaur again. At the time, I didn't realize that it was traditionally the most Fisher Price starter, right? Because you get type advantage in the first 2 gyms with Bulbasaur. I just thought I was the greatest trainer on earth with Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur moving through. I was also fortunate my first time through picking up or catching a Pikachu in Viridian Forest, which is of like a pretty not like shiny hunter rare encounter, of course, as I watch you go through Safari Week and the mess that feels like it's been as I've been watching and catching your updates, but a pretty rare encounter. So I was excited to have Pikachu. Then you're thinking of the anime. It's like, okay, now I have a Pikachu too. So, all in all, to answer your question, I did mimic pretty closely, with the little caveat being I did get a Pikachu in my first playthrough on my own cartridge.
I'm pleased you've been enjoying, maybe the wrong word, but my ventures in the Safari Zone. But I've been there for weeks, literally weeks, trying to find any shiny Pokemon. Anyway, you got that Pikachu to mimic the anime, and you said yes that playing through Pokemon Red that then got you into the cards and the anime, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it got me into anime, and actually, once I started watching the anime, I realized Pikachu, for the longest time, it's been my least favorite Pokemon. And I think it had to do with, the first couple gym battles in the anime felt weird. It was like, well, that's not what I'm experiencing kind of as I'm playing the game. When it got to the Lieutenant Surge episode and Ash didn't want to evolve his Pikachu, and at the time in the game, like, I had Raichu, and I was like, this Raichu's awesome. Like, what are we doing here? So I actually, like, because I started watching anime, just got like this ridiculous disdain for Pikachu itself until like 2021. Like, it was like my least favorite Pokemon until 2021, where that's kind of when I started actually getting into the mix, doing all the commentary stuff, which we'll talk about later. And it's like, well, I'm getting so much Pikachu branded stuff, like, it's everywhere now. Like, I can't. It was essentially appreciation just by the vast amount of stuff I've gotten. I have so much branded stuff on that are tied to so many good memories for me. That led to the trading card games, which made me really fall in love with competing in trading card games. Yeah.
Yeah, which paved the way for Magic, I believe.
Yeah, so as I kind of got older and I had Pokemon cards, I thought that was really neat. I actually had a buddy that played both, right? So we played Pokemon together, but he had just started getting into Magic the Gathering. And it just became a thing of, there was more people that I was close to that were playing Magic. So I just kind of pivoted to that to have more folks to play with. But that original spark definitely came from Pokemon. And I ended up playing Magic the Gathering, not Pokemon, for, well, until this day, right? So that has lasted over a decade, far over a decade now, of just gaming in TCGs. I used to be as competitive as I could in Magic the Gathering. And it really helped form a lot of friendships I had. And all throughout that, Pokemon stays a through line. The games were still coming out. We still liked Pokemon. We just played Magic.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. And you also said in the notes that you sent over to me, you also started playing more on the physical sports side of things now, rugby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that started in high school as well. So started playing rugby in high school, and it was kind of like the first time my friend group divorced from kind of that Magic the Gathering Pokemon friend group I had. So a little bit of divergence there, but how it all kind of ties back together: trading card games, rugby, which I started playing in high school and I stopped playing in 2020. So it was like a bazillion years. Played through college. So then I had like my rugby friends. I had the friends that I was playing Magic the Gathering with. And there is a trophy shop next to the card shop I played Magic the Gathering in. So I was in the card shop playing Magic the Gathering, and somebody, unbeknownst to me, on our rugby team had to go pick up a trophy or a certificate or something at this trophy shop, and saw all the cars parked in front of the card shop. So they went and got their thing. They poked their head in, again, unbeknownst to me, poked their head in, kind of saw what was going on, pop back out. And then the following rugby practice I had, he was like, hey, everybody, like, Kirk was in the card store. He was playing Magic the Gathering, which is not something like at the time that I think you kind of universally shared, right? It was just like your hobbies were your hobbies. And, there was criticisms that at that age you're kind of concerned about, right? About what you like and how cool it is and all this other nonsense that should have no bearing on your life. It's like, yeah, he was in there playing Magic the Gathering. So everybody kind of ribbed me for that a little bit. But that's where my rugby nickname came from, which is Magic. And I've had that now for a bazillion years because of that. And so I have, like, my friends' kids that play rugby call me Mr. Magic. And they call my wife Mrs. Magic. Because that's just how rugby culture is. Your nickname is just it's kind of like part of your identity in the community. So there are literally folks all over North America that just know me as Magic, don't even know my real name. That's just what they call me. Their kids don't even know my real name. They don't even know my last name. It's just Mr. Magic. And it's a pretty funny dynamic to be in and bring the family in as all these buddies and stuff are like, yeah, that's go say thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Magic for, helping you tie your shoes or whatever, right? This little 5-year-old that comes out. It's like, thanks, Mr. Magic. Okay. And then they like run away. But the fact that ties in all the way back to Pokemon in the trading card game and then starting to play Magic, and then those kind of two worlds collided in a very unpredictable way, I would say, and now has become a through line in my rugby career, even though it has nothing to do with trading card games at all.
I mean, there are similarities, aren't there? Because I wouldn't be surprised if quite a few people tuning into the Unite casts just know you as Doobsnax, right? They don't necessarily know your surname. So Magic, Doob, maybe you just don't have a surname. Who knows? And
it's slowly getting rubbed away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like a Zendaya figure or something like that. And it's so interesting as well, as someone from the UK, to you talk about rugby. I don't imagine rugby being played that much in schools in America, but clearly I'm wrong. I associate rugby very much with the British school system, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say incredibly popular. It certainly wasn't as popular then. So I live in the state of Kentucky, and our schools didn't have enough players in each, so we actually formed a team called the Northern Kentucky Gentlemen, and our mascot was the Monopoly Man. And we actually played in Ohio, which is the state straight above us, because they had, there's a pretty decent rugby culture in the state of Ohio. So we formed a Northern Kentucky team, and then we traveled to Ohio every weekend to play all of those high school teams. And we were part of the, Ohio State championship tournaments and all that stuff. They were pretty welcoming to us as the unique case that we were. So that was incredibly beneficial. And like I said, once I started playing, I never really stopped. 2020, I had shoulder surgery stuff, but whatever.
Oh, I see. Okay. We can skip over that. But from rugby teams now to your Pokemon team, it's time to discover who the first Pokemon is joining a dream team. So as a reminder, the aim here is not for Kirk to build the best competitive team in any way. It's just Pokemon that are special to him in whatever way, and he can define that however he wants. I have no idea what they are, so let's find out together. Kirk, what's your first Pokemon?
My first Pokemon is Raichu, which was my first ever favorite Pokemon. I alluded to it a little bit before when I was talking about kind of my disdain for Pikachu that grew because I loved Raichu so much. And I distinctly remember one of my favorite moments in the anime is like the first 15 minutes in the Lieutenant Surge episode, when like Lieutenant Surge says something along the lines of, like, show him a real thunder shock, and then just like completely lights up Pikachu, like another body slam, and he's just absolutely ruining Pikachu. And at that time, I was like, yeah, get him with Raichu, who's better, obviously. And of course, it didn't quite shake out in the end for old Raichu and Lieutenant Surge. But for that first 15 minutes, I felt heard. In the anime, I was like, see, this is what I've been saying too. And Raichu has been my one of my go-to Pokemon for a super long time. Definitely one of my favorites, and has only really recently kind of been edged out and outshined by another Pokemon we'll talk about later on.
Okay, well, we're on tenterhooks there. But I think a great number of us remember that episode of the anime where we see our good friend Pikachu unfortunately not having the best time, but then Pikachu does end up coming out on top. Do you think, was there anything more that connected you to Raichu than that?
I really enjoyed Raichu. I mean, especially because I caught that Pikachu early. Sure. I evolved it. It was always part of my team at that point in time. Like, it was part of that non-revolving group. So I had, my starter, and I had Raichu. Like, those were always non-negotiables on the team on my first playthrough. So like that had a big bearing to do with it. And to be fair, in the anime, they made Raichu look really cool. Like really well designed, how it moved. I just thought it was great. It made it pretty easy. And I think it's fair for it to line up with, my first and favorite Pokemon certainly be in the generation that I started playing first as well.
Absolutely. Makes total sense. Well, Raichu, welcome to the team. And we're going to go from there over to, well, it seems like we're jumping quite a little bit ahead in the future, getting married.
Yeah, so my wife and I, Hannah, started dating in 2014, married in 2016. And at this point in time, I was playing a lot of competitive Magic. I was traveling to their Grand Prix, doing a lot of their Pro Tour qualifier circuit stuff. And I was having a lot of fun doing that and competing. However, as we were, getting closer to being married, obviously there's some financial obligations with that. It made playing Magic not very tenable because of the cost of the cards. It's not necessarily like Pokemon, for those who aren't familiar, where you have like, a lot of supporters that are crossed across, that cross a couple decks, or like Ultra Balls that may be across a couple decks, right? Your cards that you played were pretty unique to the color or even the strategy within that color. So you could find yourself with these mythic rares, these high level rares that if you change decks from one weekend to the next, well, you needed a whole new set of those high level rares. And some decks play 8, 12, 16 of them. Well, when they're $20, $30 a piece, that you can see how that snowballs incredibly quickly. So I wanted to find a way to stay competitive or compete in trading card games that was had a lower barrier of entry financially than Magic did. And at this point in time, it wasn't too difficult to find. There was a couple options, but my mind went back. I love Pokemon. I used to have the Pokemon cards. Let me take a look at the Pokemon Trading Card Game. And it just so happened that around that time, I watched a US Nats where the finals were Enrique Avila playing Waylord against Jason Klaczynski, and this kind of like crazy, bizarre set of like stall deck versus like an item lock type strategy. And I was like, you know what? Let's go with Pokemon. And I just immediately started researching decks, finding decks, and started kind of putting my feet in the water in like 2015, 2016. We got married. And then I was talking to Hannah. I was like, I kind of want to go to some of these regionals and see what like the bigger scene is about. And I did, and I absolutely enjoyed it. This was kind of in the 2016, 2017 season. And it really just kind of took off from there, right? I wanted to compete, but I didn't really have access to a local card store. So what did I do? I went to a local card store in Louisville, where my wife is from. I met some of my good buddies, Jeff Saran, Jared Weiss. And after the first time meeting, I just reached out and I was like, hey, I kind of want to start like a strategic podcast, like a competitive TCG podcast about Pokemon. And my thought was, if I can make people come to me just by having a podcast, right? And I want to interview, I want to talk to you. And that's actually how I learned a lot about the game, was just interviewing people for this podcast. And that's kind of where Super Rodcast came from. Jeff and Jared were both very well stitched into the community. Jared at the time was getting top 8s at regionals. Jeff was like a really great deck innovator in the area, very solid player as well. So I was learning a lot from them throughout this process. And it really kind of developed into what Super Rodcast was, finally going to bigger events. And that eventually led into the 2017-2018 season, which was kind of my first full competitive season as a Pokemon TCG player.
So you started doing this competitive TCG podcast before having your first sort of official full season as a TCG player?
Yeah, that's right. So I was going to like a League Cup here and there, but I wasn't in my mind like, let's make the world's chase, on the points.
Sure.
That wasn't, I was trying to just kind of get my feet wet, understand the community, understand the tournament structure. I remember one of my first League Cups, I got a top 8 and I didn't understand how the tiebreaker rules worked in top 8, and I lost because of it. And I was like, okay, well, that was like that's something I should have known, but I didn't. And then it was actually to Dustin Zimmerman, top 3 in Worlds in like 2013 or whatever. And it was a tough lesson learned, but hey, that's the type of stuff I was doing leading up to my first full competitive season. Was trying to figure out those minutiae out that maybe you wouldn't cross unless you were put in that unique scenario, much like the top 8 tiebreaker rules.
Yeah, I can picture you sort of saying, why did none of the guests on the podcast say this before? If only they talked about that, then I wouldn't have lost that tournament. That's it's very canny of you to get to know the game through talking to experts, and then you hit the ground running in that 2017 season. How that season overall, how was that for you?
Yeah, so the 2017-2018 season worked out really well. I got my invite in about 2/3 of the season, 3/4 of the season, and I was pretty burnt out by that point. And I wanted to kind of keep my mind fresh, so I actually didn't play in any events for the remainder of that season to kind of prime up for Worlds. But I did go to NAIC, for example, just to see my friends that I've been competing with all year long, right, and hang out, but didn't have the stress of preparation in there. Didn't have the stress of needing a certain finish to get my invite or anything like that. I had locked it up a couple months earlier. So it was a nice way to kind of coast to the finish line, but it ended up kind of being a double-edged sword because once you power down, it's really hard to kind of power back up. I kind of flubbed my my Worlds opportunity that I earned for myself because I didn't quite get back into that kind of competitive mode that I had hit to earn my invite. So like I said, double-edged sword. Those couple months were a lot of fun. I got to really enjoy the game and the people and the community for what they were, without the stress of playing and trying to earn certain amounts of points. But because of that, I couldn't quite ramp it back up when we got to Nashville.
Getting the invite, though, is an achievement in itself. So I hope you still feel very proud of yourself for that reason. And now it's time to see who's going to be joining Raichu on your dream team. Who's going to be Pokemon number 2, Kirk?
Pokemon number 2 is going to be Pelipper. And the reason it's in this spot is because I don't think it doesn't tie to any other kind of like life moment like I feel like the other ones do. But pelicans in real life are my favorite animal. So once I found out that Pelipper was a Pokemon, and because I had been separated and divorced from Pokemon so early when I started playing Magic, that I lost like generations worth of Pokemon that didn't even know existed. So Pelipper was one of those Pokemon. And I actually kind of learned about Pelipper around Cramorant's release because I was like, Cramorant kind of looks like a pelican, and I don't know, there's another pelican Pokemon. And I was taking a look, and it's like, oh, there is just flat out a 1-for-1 pelican Pokemon, and I'm all in. It's the way it looks, the way it acts, what it does. I've obviously dipped into the lore. I've watched some episodes. You know, you can kind of search by Pokemon, see what actual episodes it's in, even if it's just like in the horizon, right? So I checked out just a bunch of, and I was like, yeah, Pelipper's it. Pelicans are my favorite animal in real life. Pelipper is now my favorite Pokemon. I apologize to you, Raichu. You've been my ride or die since literally I started the game, but the correlation between my favorite animal and this Pokemon was just too strong.
I could picture you watching every single episode where Pelipper appears taking fastidious notes on,
okay, he's on a park bench drooling. Perfect. Right.
Okay, yep. Why do you think pelicans are your favorite animal?
It has to do with when I went to the beach in like middle school, and I just saw, it was like this row, it was like 5 or 6 pelicans, and they were flying really low to the water, and then they would zip up in like an air current. And then what pelicans do to like dive underwater to catch fish is they kind of like go into an aero mode, right? And then they snap their wings out and then back in, so their body spins, and they kind of like torpedo into the water.
Yeah.
And just watching them do that, like as kind of like they'd like go up and then be like vroom, 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 vroom. I just thought that looked so freaking cool. And it was like one of those things, like everybody can say their favorite animal is a lion, but have you ever interacted in a way that a lion, you know, this closely to a lion and what they're actually doing in their, you know, daily? I can't say so. Some might. But when I was watching the pelicans, I was like, you know what? That is a really cool animal. They do a lot of, like, it's a unique animal. It does a unique thing. It looks kind of goofy, unique, and weird. So all those things just check box. And I was like, yeah, pelicans, they're my favorite. Why not?
Yeah, that's a really lovely story. I bet Pelipper's a little bit afraid of the Raichu on your team having a double weakness to the electricity there, being a water flying type. They complement each other.
Yeah, we holster those Pokeballs on opposite hips.
Yeah, sure. It's always interesting doing these episodes because I see little plushies in the background and I noticed that Pelipper behind you before. And I always wonder which of these plushies are going to be featured on their team. And there it is, front row center, the Pelipper there, ready to go. And of course, for the Pokemon video game, Pelipper was on the winning team at the North American International Championship. So Pelipper's got those competitive chops as well.
I was in the back watching that go down, and all the other folks that were in the back with me knew I was coming unglued. I don't know anything about VGC at all, how anything works. The stat buffs ups and downs, I have no idea. All I know is my boy Patrick, I believe, came out with the shiny Pelipper, and I was like, yes, all in on him, 1,000%. And it ended up being like the linchpin of his strategy to secure the win, which made it like even cooler. It wasn't just in the 6; it was in the mix, and it was doing some really cool stuff. So I was like, yeah, Pelipper is just beast, weather ball or whatever it has, and it's terrific. It's terrific.
Well, we're going to swoop from there right to talking about your first broadcast and going from there.
Yeah, so my first broadcast was actually in my first full competitive season. It was I put some notes here. As the things are further in the past, I needed more notes. So my first broadcast I was on was in Collinsville, and that was Collinsville 2018 is what I have marked down. Who knows? In 2018. But what happened was my friend Jeff Saran that I mentioned earlier was actually going there to broadcast, to be part of the broadcast team. And I was going to play. My tournament was going super middling, wasn't great. And Jeff was like, hey, we could use some help. Do you want to come cast some games? And I said, yes, I do. So I got back there. They obviously paired me up with Jeff, right? Because we had familiarity with each other. And as soon as I got in and the lights were on and we were watching our first game and we were talking about it, and I was like, okay, I love competing in trading card games. I really love casting Pokemon. Like Pokemon TCG, obviously at this point was the focus. So shout out to Daz, who's been part of the Pokemon production crew for a long time. Emily as well. They had a thing called Critical Hit at the time that was producing some of these shows. They gave me the chance, and I think they kind of saw that I was handling the moment well. They gave me a couple more rounds to cast throughout that weekend. And again, that was just kind of the propulsion, right? So then my Worlds qualifying season, the 2017-2018 season, what really became my focus is I want to qualify, not just to say I qualify, but I want to qualify to give myself the credibility, or at least a level of credibility that I think I need to be able to be a caster for this game. Oh, well, he qualified for Worlds in this season, right? Like at least I have something, a metric to point to. That's not necessarily needed by any means. That's just in my mind what I was thinking of at the time. That's an approach I wanted to take. So my focus after that for the rest of the season was get my invite, get that just baseline level of credibility I wanted for myself, and then just start hunting down these casting opportunities. And I was able to get another one at the end of that season because I had already qualified, right? I didn't have to play in that regional. So I got to cast that regional. And then that was just kind of where this fire grew inside me. So I was able to compete, do well enough. I was able to cast a couple times to really figure that out. And then I was able to hone in on what the true passion was, a passion I had no idea I had, which was casting.
The trading card game, obviously, is perhaps to watch less dynamic than the video game or Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Go. Mm-hmm. And so I can imagine that the energy that you brought based on what you do for Pokemon Unite, the energy that you brought was perhaps something that hadn't been seen so much in trading card game casting. Do you think you sort of connect with that? Do you think you were bringing something new to the table?
I think so. I think those early broadcasts, especially because I was with one of my best friends, Jeff and I were almost always casting together in those early years, which made it easy. So we were just using that. We were having those moments. We were reacting like we would react if we were just watching at home together, right? There's a particular clip where Azul Garcia Griego gets the 6 prize Towering Splash GX against Alex Szymanski. And Jeff and I are casting that game, and it was one of the most hype and hilarious and goofy TCG casting moments that I've ever been a part of. But I think in that moment reflected pretty differently than how other broadcasts sounded like. So I think in that avenue, I think we were bringing something a little new. Admittedly, I think our deficiency was there's a lot of folks that what they really appreciate about the TCG commentary is of some more of that hyper in-depth analytical type strategic, and we were more just having fun with what we liked and how we were doing. So we didn't really have structure, but in that vein, I think it allowed us to be a little bit more silly and goofy, and I think that carried through pretty hard into where what I'm doing now with Unite for sure.
Yeah. Well, both are important. You've got casual viewers and you've got the more competitive viewers. And just goes to show, you get involved in the community, and it just so happened that your friend was also casting, invited you to be a part of the casting as well. It's so important just to take that step into the community, into live events, and start doing something you love, and then, good things come from there. Speaking of good things, it's time for your third Pokemon on your dream team. So who's going to be joining Raichu and Pelipper?
It is going to be Wailord. And the reason Wailord, it is kind of the mascot of my 2017-2018 competitive season. If you kind of think back to that 2015 Nats with Enrique Avila playing the Wailord EX deck, right? This kind of big stall deck. Well, there was a reason I kind of tapped into that game, and I was like, yeah, I'd like to try this. It's because I kind of like those torturous, grindy, kind of like resource suffocating type decks. And it really lined up with me. So at the time, there was a lot of expanded regionals, and I got over half my invite with this Wailord EX kind of Wailord stall deck. And like I said, it really became the mascot of my whole qualifying run, because anytime there was an expanded regional, I was going to it, I was bringing Wailord, and I was leaving with points. Like, it was like automatic. And at that point in time, I had gotten so many reps in with the deck. I had worked with Drew Bennett, who at the time was like top 8ing regionals with the Wailord deck. We were working pretty closely together, hand in hand. So we were, I wouldn't say in reinventing the wheel by any means, but we were just tweaking things here and there to say, okay, going into this weekend, because it was popular the weekend before, we're going to need more of these, or it's not on people's radar, which means we can be a little bit more selfish with the choices we're making to kind of hedge in other places, because it'll be not expected, which means we don't have to cover those weaknesses as hard. And it really became this really cool revolving testing cycle throughout that season. And ultimately, like I said, it was responsible for over half the points I got from my invite. And it's hard to argue with that. So Wailord always comes along for the ride if you're on my team, because if it wasn't for Wailord, I don't think I would have qualified for Worlds.
You might not have been reinventing the whale, but you certainly did a fantastic season. Hey, there we go. I obviously have the pictures of the Pokemon on the Dream Team. For Wailord, you mentioning it, I'm tempted just to fill the entire screen with that Pokemon. It's canonically such a
I don't know how else
Pokemon.
You would do it.
No, exactly. Yeah, just have our voices emanating from behind this big blue whale. Well, Wailord, welcome to the team. Fantastic choice. And now from there, we're going to go to the birth of your daughter.
Yeah, of course. So Olive was born in April 2020. So like right at the jump of the pandemic. And of course, at this point in time, I was doing a little bit of casting. Unite hadn't come out yet, but Connor, who you just spoke to, Joe, Jack Old, I was doing a lot of just online tournament casting with them. And that's kind of how I was staying tethered to the Pokemon community. Olive came along, and in my mind, it's like, I don't want to force Pokemon on her, right? Of course, I got her like a little plushie, like, see if she would gravitate towards them or anything like that. But really, because Hannah's not into Pokemon as I am either, I did want to have like a little mascot for, Pokemon mascot for the family that we can all kind of galvanize around. And Olive, as she got older, got a little bit more interested in, like Papa's doing a Pokemon today. Papa's doing this today, right? When I would kind of huddle up in this office right here and start casting and stuff. But Olive jumping into our life obviously just kind of turns all your priorities upside down, right? It becomes literally a pyramid Olive's at the top, and everything diverges and divests from there. Life-changing in the most wonderful way possible. And now has come to so many events with me and gotten to see so many different parts of the world and experience so much stuff that without putting a video game in her hands or the trading cards in her hands or a bunch of plushies in her hands, she's found her own way to appreciate Pokemon, and for what like watching her experience Pokemon through her eyes is very exciting, because I remember how I felt when I first found out about Pokemon, and her foray into Pokemon is completely different than mine, but in the best way possible, because it's like I'm re-experiencing Pokemon from a complete fresh spot, you know, where everything is wondrous. You know, what is this? Oh, what does this Pokemon do? Why does it have this? I like this one. And just watching her kind of go through all the same things that we've done when we were finding and discovering Pokemon at whatever age you were or whatever game you started with. It just doesn't matter. We all go through that, and being able to watch her go through that has just been amazing. It really has been.
Yeah, I think, you know, it'd be difficult to be involved in the franchise if you didn't retain some sense of that wide-eyed wonder that Pokemon can bring. Mm-hmm. And whether that's sort of vicariously through your daughter or whether it's just a sense that we retain. I imagine it's a bit of both for you. But yeah, it's interesting to hear you say, you know, you didn't want to force Pokemon on Olive, but I can picture whenever the very first time was that she stumbled into this very room where you're sat now. It's there's kind of no going back from there, right?
No, exactly. And, you know, there's stuff strewn all about. Of course, you know, like I said, she hears, you know, Papa's going to go do Pokemon this weekend, whatever. So it's always kind of around, right? By hook or by crook, it is there. And I just want her to engage with it in whatever fashion she wants. You know, sometimes it's literally just coming into the office and looking at stuff. And what's this? And I'll like pick her up and we'll just look at stuff. And she's like, okay, you know, that's enough. Or she'll be like, you know, the plushes I have up there, what's this one? Can I hold it? And then, of course, you know, and then she'll play it and she'll run around and play with it a little bit and come back and give it back. And it goes right back up there. There's some that I've had on that shelf that are now just kind of hers. She just keeps in her room. That's where she wants it. So it's been very unique as she's trying to, again, navigate the feelings of which one's my favorite. Why is it my favorite? Is it the color? Is it how it looks? Is it because it evolves? Because it doesn't? As she's working through all those game mechanisms, again, like I said, seeing that in real time has been absolutely amazing. And it's been incredible to be along for that ride with her, because I distinctly remember not necessarily moments, but feelings that I had as I was going through that similar thing at the start of my Pokemon journey. So number 4 on my list is Smoliv, and that of course correlates to the birth of Olive, our daughter. And I was kind of mentioning or alluding to that we kind of wanted a Pokemon based kind of mascot for the family. And that has become Smoliv for us. So it's a Pokemon we all really like. It's adorable. We have little Smolivs all over the place in our house. It's kind of like everybody just kind of picks up a Smoliv. So Smoliv would be the next Pokemon on my team. And I think it's pretty evident why. To me, it ties my Pokemon passion to like my pride and joy, my daughter, Olive. It's like a 1-for-1. It's so easy. It's so clear. It was there for me, ready to line up. So Olive is unequivocally represented by Smoliv on this list, and that is my number 4.
Well, it's brilliant that you've had Pokemon to unite you. And was that a segue? That's right. We're now going to talk about Pokemon Unite.
Yeah. So Pokemon Unite was announced, and at that point in time, Pokemon TCG broadcasts were being brought back in-house. They already had kind of their roster of casters that they had, and I kind of felt like I had maybe missed the opportunity. I didn't want to give up on casting because I enjoyed it so much, and in my mind it was like, do I love casting or do I love casting the Pokemon Trading Card Game? Pokemon Unite was announced, and my first thought was, I have a pretty decent presence in the Pokemon community, just in terms as a figure, right? Name recognition. That's what I'm looking for. So for that, what I wanted to do was, okay, if I want to cast this game, how do I do that? And that's where I kind of came up with the Unite mics. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to get other people that want to cast with me. I'm going to reach out to all the Twitch streamers as soon as the game gets out to use their VODs so I can practice casting again. And then at the start, now Unite mics has evolved into tournaments that we do. And, Zoinks does Overdunk, the podcast, and it has had a bunch of other things going with it. But originally it was just a portfolio of casting. That's all it was. So when the game was released, I kind of employed the strategy. I already had like branding done, folks pulled in, folks ready to be involved. And I just wanted to get after it, right? I just wanted to start building this portfolio because in my mind, being the first out of the gate is good because it doesn't matter how bad you are. There's nothing to compare you to. And by the time that there's comparisons to be made, the thought is if I keep working at it, I'll be far enough ahead as long as I don't stop. And then, of course, it gives you a little bit of visibility, a little bit of recognition. If somebody's searching for a caster, hopefully Google results will work out in your favor. So that's kind of exactly what happened. I started Unite Mics. At first, it was me, Zoinks, Joe Bernard, and my buddy Jeff. Unite Mics was kind of kicking off. Some of our first videos have 55, 60,000 views, which for United, I was like, this is like I said, a portfolio for me. I didn't actually expect to get viewers rolling in, right? Zoinks was already in the fold then, and it was very easy because Zoinks is incredibly masterful. He's very good at the game. He's very intelligent about the game, and he's pretty eloquent about the game too. So I talked to Josh, and at the time we were both kind of doing this play-by-play casting. We kind of forged together to become the core duo of Unite Mics, and then that is really when the channel started taking on a life of its own. So you kind of fast forward a little bit. Unite Mics has been established, and I remember this. I was watching The Tender Bar with Hannah, and it was December 21st or something. And I get a message out of the blue from the production company that's going to be doing Unite the following year, and hey, we stumbled across your content. We would like you to cast the first Pokemon Unite event that we're going to do. And I was, of course, all in, right? Instant. I was like, this is exactly, if I were to draw this roadmap, we have hit every stop in perfect succession. This is amazing. It's kind of the perfect, went exactly how I drew it up, exactly as planned. And that leads us to that first broadcast where we were cast pretty much the entire first season from home in front of the webcam. And that was just the reaffirmation. I was like, I love casting so much. I had so much fun during that broadcast. And I've been on, fortunately, knock on wood, on every single North American EU official broadcast since that very first one. I think Spraggles and I are the only two that have kind of been around since the jump.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I remember talking to you about this at EOIC as well, how, as soon as Unite was announced, you had your game plan. You knew that you wanted to be in there early, ready to cast. So as soon as you got that email, that message saying, we want to take you on for the first season, you must have thought, there must have been sort of a moment of exactly as I planned, but also just sort of elation, right?
The only reason I checked my phone is because Hannah went to make popcorn while we were watching the movie. It was like, let's make some popcorn. So she went to make popcorn. So the movie was paused, and that's why I checked my phone. She runs back and was like, what is going on? And I was like, I've just been asked to be on the first Unite broadcast. And it was just a kind of stunned, and then stunned, super excited. God, do I respond right now? Because the email had come in, 7 hours earlier. I just hadn't seen it. Do I respond right now? Does that look too desperate? And then it was just just this comedy of questions you ask yourself for no reason. It doesn't change anything. But it was just you're just kind of rolling through. And I'll tell you what, I don't know how good the movie The Tender Bar is, because I don't remember any of it after that, because I was just I was just glaring at the movie, not ingesting anything. I was just thinking about that email, thinking about the first broadcast and how validating and exciting just that opportunity was going to be.
I can't wait for you to go back and watch that film in full and then get your thoughts, whether it's been affected by the fact that message came in, just you see it with rose-tinted lenses or not.
For my number 5, which is where I believe we are right now, I went with Sableye. And the reason I went with Sableye is because in Unite, it's currently my favorite character to play. I also love Hoopa, which you can see above me right there. I don't have a Sableye plush yet, but I do have this little Sableye. Whoa, I literally broke it as I picked it up, little guy.
no.
Poor little guy. It's right here. No. I just shattered it as I picked it up. But so those two Pokemon were my favorite to play, or my favorite to play in the game. But there's just something about the little gremlin, the little gentleman that, as we call it in Unite, that it cannot be denied. And I had to tip the cap. I had to choose at least one Pokemon from Unite, and I elected to go with Sableye.
It's interesting having Smoliv and Sableye together there, because Smoliv, that's Pokemon that no guest has chosen so far. Sableye has had quite a few representations, actually, on
I've heard
so far. So it's interesting seeing how all these tally out. I don't think it's the number one popular Pokemon right now, but yeah, we'll have to see how the data shakes out. But of course, yes, a Pokemon Unite character had to be in there somewhere. And this now brings us up to Pokemon Unite Now.
Yeah, Pokemon Unite Now is truly an amazing thing. It is incredibly unique to itself. Like I said, Spraggles and I have really been around since the very beginning. Zoinks as well, I think, joined in, a couple broadcasts in that first season. He hasn't gone away. And I think it's a testament to the strength of the game. Because our game, it's not like we get a new release or new sets all the time. Yes, we get new Pokemon, but it doesn't actually change how the game is played. It changes like the mechanics within the game or the strategies you employ within the game. But the game as a whole kind of remains static in terms of the objective. Now, when you think about that, and you now think that we're in year 3, going to our 3rd World Championships right around the corner here, about a month away, I think that shows the strength of the game just in terms of concept. And it's been just an amazing ride to be along. If you listen back to that first broadcast compared to what our broadcasts are now, we've found our lane. We've found our voice, our energy, the type of product we want to put out there, because we've had the same people on the broadcast so far, that it's made it easy to develop it and mold it in a way that we're all really proud of. And the way that we want to present the product to the folks watching at home. And I think we have a pretty engaging and fun experience that we bring to broadcast. And of course, Unite is more than just the broadcast that we put on, but it just so happens to be the most important part for me, right? It's the thing I care about the most. We have kind of worn down the edges, right? So when the tournament structure comes, we can make the adjustments on, this Pokemon is a little too overtuned. It changes the dynamic of the pick ban phases and stuff. Let's just take that out of the equation and have ourselves like really good strategic games within the tournament structure, which has made the broadcasts more fun to cast. It leads to better games. It allows us to feel engaged. It allows the folks watching to be engaged, right? Because it's a unique experience to them. And over these last, 3 years almost now with Unite, with the UCS, Unite Championship Series, I mean, it's hard to say that it's not one of the greatest things, one of the best aspects of the game right now. It feels like an esport to me. And I'm not discrediting other ones. I'm just saying, to me, it feels like when you think of an esport, I think Unite lines up pretty closely to what just your standard non-invested in Pokemon person would think, as to the fanfare, the folks on stage, the face cams, the casting booze, like the way the inflections and the highs and lows of the game naturally work out. Like, I think that's a song and dance that's kind of repeated across other major titles. Unite has truly, really excelled in these last 3 years, and I hope we're along for the ride for a long time, because I love it. I think the broadcast is a good product. I think we all truly care about it. The folks behind the scenes truly care about it. They are with us in our vision and how we approach moments and things like that. So it's a really a great place to be, and I can't thank everyone at Pokemon and the production companies enough for letting me do this. It's truly a joyride that I don't take for granted.
Yeah, well, very touching words to end that little discussion on there. I was going to say, you say it feels like an esport to you. I can tell you, being in the venue from an outside perspective, it sounds like an esport. Everyone's going absolutely crazy for Pokemon Unite. It's so incredible to hear. And just so special that you were with it right from the very start. So you really have that sort of trajectory. You have that journey at the forefront of your mind. And you and Spraggles, just the wealth of knowledge that you'll have accumulated about the game in that time. It's quite staggering. But speaking of accumulating, it's now time to accumulate the final member of your dream team, Kirk. So who's going to be joining Raichu, Pelipper, Wailord, Smoliv, and Sableye?
It is going to be Chatot. And this is a Pokemon that I have absolutely no connection with, but I was trying to, in my mind, what is a Pokemon that captures these last 3 years casting this game? So I decided to go with Chatot as just kind of a symbolic representation of casting, being on the mic for 3 years, and just always getting to yammer about the game. So Chatot is where I went, and I have literally... I'm not even convinced I know the color schemes of Chatot. Blue, green, yellow, maybe. Has exactly a music note as a head. Yeah, I like, in my mind it makes sense. It lines up, so I just kind of locked it in. But yes, I chose that Pokemon specifically to be the representation of these last 3 years of just talking about the game, chatting about the game, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Chazingdra chats. We did it. Bang. Full circle. Bang.
Mic drop and roll credits. Chatot. Well, fantastic. It's so fascinating to hear the different ways that guests approach the 6 Pokemon on their team. And for some, it's a very specific, rooted experience. But I love that for you, it's just sort of... it's broader than that. There are some that you have very specific experiences with, but some that just sort of seem like the perfect summation of experiences that you've had. And that means, Kirk, that your full dream team, you got Raichu, you got Pelipper, you got Wailord, Smoliv, Sableye, and Chatot. So now, of course, I want to know, which of these 6 Pokemon are you going to choose to be your partner?
I know I said that Smoliv is representative of my daughter. So it would be tough for me not to choose Smoliv as my partner Pokemon for sure. I know all the folks out there probably assumed Pelipper, but you can't. If you pick a Pokemon to symbolize your kid, you can't not pick that Pokemon. Smoliv is coming along for the ride, sitting up right here on my shoulder.
Yeah, going to have to. As I was going through your 6 Pokemon, then I thought, wow, no pressure, Kirk. But if you don't choose Smoliv...
it's a rough look for the kid, yeah, 100%. Yeah, Smoliv without a doubt. And, I truly, going through this exercise has like kind of helped me find like an appreciation, like a deeper appreciation for all these Pokemon, right? Because you start tying them to moments, like you said, or the embodiments of things you've done or things you've achieved, and that just naturally elevates them in what they represent again to you. So a greater appreciation for all 6 without a doubt, but Smoliv is going to be if I'm on the motorcycle, they're going to be in the sidecar.
Yeah, perfect. Well, Smoliv, partner Pokemon, very well chosen. And now, slightly different line of questioning here, Kirk. If you were a Pokemon, what do you think you'd be?
I do think I would be Pelipper, and the reason I say this is Pelipper, little stupid, little slow, little dumb, but always delivers, and that's kind of how I think I am as a person. So we'll go with Pelipper.
That's so fascinating to hear. That, in many ways, is more insightful than anything you've said over the past hour. I would not have assumed, I would not have said those things about you. But it's so interesting to hear that is how you see yourself. But hey, certainly a Pokemon that's just always happy, always up for a good time, and that is certainly something I associate with you. And also, of course, because you have a massive bill to store water and fish. So yeah,
sure, yeah.
I
haven't expanded it yet. That might be in the Patreon portion or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can't give everything away during the main.
Yeah. Scientific marvel. Anyway, what do you all think? Do you agree that Kirk would be a Pelipper? Let us know in the comments, because Kirk especially would be fascinated to hear if you agree. And speaking of your time, some questions from you all, I posted online, as I always do, asking for community questions for Kirk, and thank you so much, as always, for submitting them. Apologies if I mispronounce any of your names or handles here. Now, Trading Card Game caster Alex Dow TCG would like to know, would you ever be tempted to dabble back in the trading card game? It's interesting because TCG and Unite are such different energies, so interested to get your perspective on that.
I'd always be up for that, right? I'm always willing to give it a whirl. I'd have to do a lot of brushing up, right? I think I've been separated from the game for quite some time, that trying to get caught up would be certainly a task that I'd have to undertake. But I am never closing the door on opportunities. If that's something that I'm reached out there and like, hey, we'd really like you to cast us, I will say I will be there and I will do my best.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And that's as much as you can give. Thank you for that question, Alex. Thank you for your answer, Kirk. Getting nostalgic here. This is a question from Gamatakau. What's your favourite game to cast for Unite pre-Unite Championship Series 1?
No. I did love all those grassroots events, but it's hard to build up the energy and the stakes that existed until the official tournament structure existed. Because at that point in time, it doesn't necessarily become grassroots. It's like all eyes are on this because it's the biggest thing moving. And I think that adds an air of importance or brevity to the situation, that everybody understands the stakes and knows what's going on. And yes, there have been great games in grassroots, great games in UCS, but I think just the elevation of UCS, of the stakes, of the kind of prizing of the moment, kind of makes those feel bigger to me. So I will unfortunately say, for the grassroots fans and aficionados out there from pre-UCS days, that I think my favorite games that I've cast have actually been within the UCS.
Okay, and then if you could is there one game that stands out in your mind as the favorite game you've casted?
That is tough. AOS Cup Finals, not this year, the previous year, that was a really close set. That was a lot of fun. I really liked S8UL versus LG at Worlds last year in Japan. This team from India was the only team to take a game off of the now current world champions, but in that event, they were the only team that were able to crack the code, at least for just a moment, and show some weakness within that squad, because LG were completely dominant the rest of the weekend. That was an amazing game. NAIC last year, double bracket. We had the bracket reset going to the final game. It was a huge showdown between Luminosity and TTV. TTV were like the community darlings, but had never like spiked on a big stage like that. And it was one of the most raucous crowds we've ever had. So those are just a couple, and don't ask me to rank those. It's like picking your favorite kid.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, really, really good answers, and they sound like really thrilling games. And then final question here from Dassenstench. Would your spirit animal be a Pokemon? Now, we've talked about Pelipper and you, but if you had a spirit animal, would it be a pelican, I guess, is the question.
I think that's what I would say. I just really enjoy pelicans, so I think that's pretty one for one.
Well, thanks so much for all of your questions there. If you want to submit a question for a future guest on Chazingdra Chats, you can use my socials at Chazingdra on X. That's where I post the call out for questions. All right then, Kirk. So we've heard a lot about you up to now. What's next for you?
Worlds in Honolulu, and past that, I don't really have anything in the sights. I'm going to keep doing Unite mics, keep casting events, grassroots events as they'll have me, keep casting Pokemon events as they'll have me. Really just keep casting, working on my craft. Again, first out of the gate, but I have to keep working at it all of the time. And I just want to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to stay on top of my own opportunities. So that's really in the short term where I've got my eyes set in terms of Pokemon and Pokemon Unite.
And finally, Kirk, looking back from now as a well-established Pokemon Unite caster, all the way back to the Kirk who had, 12 hours to get as far as they possibly could in Pokemon Red, what advice would you give to that younger you?
Yeah. Although it's tough, never be ashamed of the things you enjoy, the hobbies you enjoy, because all you'll do is end up costing yourself time with the things you like to do. If you're, concerned about it or anything like that, like to harken back to the story, it really didn't matter that I played Magic the Gathering. There's nothing embarrassing about that. It's something I enjoyed to do. And I remember when it was brought up in the rugby practice following time, I was like, oh no, like what is this going to lead to? I mean, and it led to a quirky nickname that I've now had forever. But that was it because those people were my friends. Like they don't care. It's like, oh, we're gonna rib them for a minute. Oh, you're a nerd, and then it was on to the next. It was on to rugby practice, like on to business as usual, right? And the folks that bring you down or talk down to you for the things you like, well, they don't really have your best interests anyways. And it's easy to say now because I feel like I'm confident in myself. I'm confident in the things I like. I'm confident with the direction of my life. But when things are a little bit more nebulous, and you're trying to make your own way, find your own way, and find yourself, those are the first things that you want to kind of insulate to yourself, because they are the easiest things for people to target and judge you on. And I understand that. But don't cost yourself time with the things you truly love and enjoy, in an effort to make other people like you or just change their opinion of you. So it's tough. I get it, especially while you're growing up. But don't be afraid of or resent your hobbies for what they are. You love them. They're yours. Do them.
It's really good advice, and it really chimes with what Amy Wosley, Trading Card Game Cast, was saying as well. But as you say, it's tough. But I think the sooner we all realise that, then the sooner we can fly, essentially. So thank you, Kirk, for that advice. And the chat doesn't end there. Now, Kirk, you are, in fact, one of the Patreon members. We're going to be getting into your Rapidash round. Can you give people a little flavour of the sorts of things that go on in that?
I'm going to be just fielding some questions, giving some bombastic and amazing answers, I hope. We'll see how quickly I can work under pressure here. But it's been one of my favorite segments. That's why after I watched the first Chazingdra chats, I was like, I need to get into this Patreon because not necessarily for me, but for all the other individuals have really cool and vibrant and exciting answers. And it's just a very nice thing to learn about people. So get in there, support, and keep this train going, right? We want Chazingdra chats with everybody. So you gotta put in to get back.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely everyone in the Pokemon community. Thousands and thousands of episodes. But thank you so much for that, Kirk. Yes, it's going to be quick fire questions that Kirk hasn't prepared for. And just to go a little bit deeper, go beyond that scratch in the surface to get to know Kirk that little bit better. Only if you're in a position to be able to support. No worries, of course. If not, thank you so much for listening to the episode as it is. It really means a lot. And Kirk, thank you so much for being on the show. As soon as you messaged to say you'd love to be on, I mean, I was going to get to you at some point anyway, but I thought, yes, well, it's a no-brainer. So thank you for giving us your time on the show.
I genuinely appreciate it. It's been an amazing time. And again, eye-opening to myself as you start thinking through these things for this episode. That aspect of it, just the prep was a lot of fun. So I hope the folks out there might have learned something about me. And again, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, of course, Kirk. And where can people keep up with you online?
On Twitter, at Doobsnax. I'm pretty much Doobsnax on everything. So there you go.
At Doobsnax. Presumably from Dubé, your surname, and then like Scooby Snacks, is that?
Yep, that's exactly right. It's like something came up with in 6th grade, thought it was funny,
yeah.
And it turns out it's just always available. So
yeah, there you go. Not Mr. Magic, it could have been. But anyway, thanks so much, Kirk. And if you want to keep up with everything I'm doing, I am at Chazingdra across all of the socials: X, Instagram, TikTok. I upload silly comedy videos like Kirk was talking about earlier. I do vlogs of the events that I cast as a Pokemon Video Game Championships commentator. If you've enjoyed the episode, please do like and subscribe as well. There are plenty more episodes on the channel for you to get involved in. Would love to know your thoughts on what Kirk shared with us. What your own dream team Pokemon would be. Would love to hear all of that, so let us know in the comments. Any feedback on the show, you can find me on the socials I've mentioned. Also, chazingdra@gmail.com. Also, for any guest suggestions, I want to have as broad a range of guests as possible on the show, so do let me know, and you can spread the word with hashtag ChazingdraChats and hashtag 6Pokemon 1 Life Story, because hopefully the show can appeal to as many people as there are in the Pokemon community and beyond. We all have that nostalgia for Pokemon. All right then, Kirk, time for your Rapidash round. So if you're not joining us over on Patreon for that, then it's goodbye from Kirk.
Goodbye.
That's goodbye from me. See you next time on Chazingdra Chats, where there'll be another 6 Pokemon, 1 life story. All right, Kirk, how are you feeling about these bonus questions?
Not great, but as you can tell, I'm a little long-winded, so we'll see. We'll see how I handle the Rapidash round.
All right, well, it can be as Rapidash as you make it. Now, let's start off with...